welcome to episode 10 of the Dharma Bum Show. Thank you so much for watching yet another video of mine. The boys are here with me. My co-hosts are sort of orbiting that way, towards the rear of the wagon. But they're here doing their duties, and we are here to present you with another fascinating topic. Just want to thank everybody in the past week who have liked the videos and subscribed to the channel. Thank you so much for all the love. We've been meeting a lot of interesting people here at the end of the summer as August comes to a close. We enter into autumn, my favorite season, by the way. The weather here is quite nice, very seasonable, quite gorgeous, and we're enjoying it. And congratulations to Wama Choga on just crashing through the 10,000 subscriber barrier on his channel. That channel is really taking off. I can't believe it. And if you haven't followed him yet, the link is in my description, and also the description of all the videos has the link to @ultimate_meeting, which is the Wama Choga's channel. Really doing wonderful. So happy for him. So the topic of today's video, guys, is Buddhism as a hologram. And so to begin to explain what that is all about, the first thing I want to talk about is conceptual models. So that is a topic that's rather fraught with Buddhism, right? Because we need to use them provisionally to get through life, but also to pass on knowledge and wisdom amongst each other, and especially in a religious context. So we need the conceptual frameworks, but then in the end, right, Buddhism's goal is to eventually do away with those frameworks. So we have a conundrum, but we're going to go ahead provisionally and talk about some models. And models in general have a problem, especially really large models, also very small ones though. And that is the problem of bias in the model, which will skew how people, what sort of knowledge and information people take in from that model. So, and to give you an example, in artificial intelligence, you take a really large model, it could be a language model, an image model, any of those types of things, and you put it into basically just dump it into an artificial neural net, put a bunch of constraints on it so it doesn't act too crazy, and then you get the output from it. And what we found with these really huge models, these AI models that are scraped from the entire internet, is that they all turn out to be biased. And even when we get down into granularity and start looking at the contents of the model, it's hard to see where that bias is coming from, but it always seems to accrue. And so that's just one example of bias in models, but all sorts of conceptual models have the potential to be skewed if they're not sort of correct, if they're not presented correctly, or if they have biased information in them, or biased ideas in them. So with that in mind, and then I'd also like to talk about how there's two different viewpoints in the study of religion. When you study religion as a science, there's two sorts of people, generally speaking: universalists and fundamentalists. And to make a long story short, your fundamentalists believe that everybody's going to hell except them, and the universalists believe that everybody's going to heaven except maybe the fundamentalists. So that's pretty much the idea, right? But I adopt, in life in general, and especially in religion, a very idealistic and extreme universalism. I believe in creating models and ideas and organizations that are as hugely inclusive as possible. And so, with those two sort of ideas in mind, we're going to talk about Buddhism as a hologram. Now, recently, in a video talk given by another podcaster, we heard a model of Buddhism, and it looked a little bit like this. What he was describing was a pyramid, and sort of a layer cake, right? And you've got, and we've all sort of seen and heard this before. This is a typical model, especially within Vajrayana Buddhism. Okay, and no doubt about that, it's a typical model within Vajrayana, and it was talked about by a Vajrayana teacher, and it's a layer cake idea. You can see with Theravada at the bottom, Mahayana in the middle, and then Vajrayana on the top. My model is different than this, and I'm going to explain what I don't like about this model. Okay, first of all, you have the lines of a pyramid is really a cube, but all the lines are skewed to meet at a certain point at the top, right? But it's actually a cube. It could be a cube if you straighten those lines out, right? But they're not. They're all skewed to meet in a point at the top of the pyramid. And there's only really one way to set a pyramid down, right? And that's on its base. So Vajrayana is always going to be sort of this, the crown of the pyramid. We hear so much about that eye of the pyramid, the crown of the pyramid. It's going to be the top, okay? And it's going to be, and what happens is this causes the bias. Then what happens is the idea becomes, well, Vajrayana must be superior, but it's not. There is no superior vehicle, okay? There's the large vehicle, the small vehicles, all different kind of vehicles, but there is no superior Buddhism. And this is this is the bias that I want to sort of push against and show you a different model, a different way of looking at things, right? And see how just something very subtle like this can skew and really change our ideas. Now, we're finding bias at both ends of this pyramid. The Theravadins, many of them, believe that there is no pyramid. Okay, and then there's just them, and everybody else is just off doing their own thing, but it's not Buddhism, right? And so there's plenty of bias within Theravada Buddhism, but not all Theravadins are fundamentalists. Very few Mahayanas are fundamentalists, and certainly but Vajrayana does tend towards a superiority complex, right? There are many Vajrayana people who do see it this way. They see the pyramid, and yes, they will openly admit it is the superior Buddhism. It is the best Buddhism. That's why it's at the top of the pyramid. I reject this. And I reject this bias of this diagram, even if somebody doesn't actually hold that bias, and they still use this diagram a lot, and they don't realize the bias that's implied by a pyramid shape and by describing Buddhism in this fashion. So here's how I see Buddhism, okay? Each layer, Mahayana, I'm okay with the layered approach for provisionally, but each layer, Theravada, Mahayana, and Theravada, each one is like a Lego brick, okay? And what happens if you take all those Lego bricks and snap them together? They really do become one sort of singular object, right? A cube. Okay. Now, and you can put a cube on any side, any way, shape, or form. It stands there stable as can be. Nobody's on top, nobody's on bottom, except by sheer coincidence of whatever angle you happen to set the cube down at. This is why one big reason where I think now the bias in this model is already gone, just dealing with a geometric shape, okay? Just talking about it as a geometric shape. But I have a fundamental belief about Buddhism that this cube is not just like this sort of solid thing of Buddhism, it's a hologram. And so what exactly is a hologram? Well, one of the fundamental properties of a hologram is that if you take any significant chunk of the hologram, either the image or the projection plate, either one, and you take any significant part of it, and it will contain the information of all the rest of the hologram. Okay? And so this is an important function of holograms, it's quite a trippy property if you stop to think about it. I mean, if you've got a hologram of, say, you, and I take just your pinky toe, one little pinky toe, okay, I can look inside there and find all the information of the entire rest of the hologram, and even recreate it from that information. Using computers and equipment, I can recreate it. Okay, so all holograms are fundamentally that way. So if we think of our cube, the three Lego bricks, Mahayana, Theravada, and Vajrayana, snap together, set at any angle, and then think of it as a hologram. So what we have is any portion of Buddhism in any of those layers can be scooped out, put into practice, and innately embedded within that knowledge of that school, Theravada, Mahayana, Vajrayana, will be all the rest of Buddhism is in that chunk. It is contained within it in the most real of ways. It is there. It is accessible, and I don't think it's uncommon at all for, say, a Theravada monk to come by awakening through a process that maybe he didn't even understand was principally a Vajrayana process, but would have been seen that way had we been able from the outside to examine his awakening. So same with Mahayana, same with Vajrayana. Um, and so this is how I fundamentally see Buddhism, not as a sort of top-down pyramid, but and I'm okay with the layered approach, but snap together, Legos snap together, each Lego representing, Mahayana, Theravada, Vajrayana in a cube that is in fact a hologram. And so that any piece of Buddhism can be practiced, and it contains within it innately the entire wisdom of all of Buddhism. And this is so important. We need to take Buddha's words seriously about the danger of the possibility that we will fracture the Sangha with these concepts and these ideas. And so it's incumbent upon us to follow Buddha's words and thoughts on this, and to create conceptual models that are as inclusive and as universal. So yeah, it's incumbent upon us, I believe, to create models that are as universal and inclusive as absolutely possible. And so hopefully this has been sort of an enlightening idea of how we look at things, how we model things in our mind, and how the simplest of concepts that are so generally accepted, but yet those models can contain a bias that puts us in the wrong direction. There is no best Buddhism. Buddhism should be practiced in a way that serves the practitioner. Um, I've got no problem with people being all three, practicing all three, a little bit from Theravada, a little bit from Mahayana, and a little bit from Vajrayana. And as I understand Vajrayana, that is actually was supposed to be the sort of original idea to begin with Vajrayana, is that all three vehicles would be included in the practices from them. In the Tibetan Yellow Book of Prayer that I pray every day, there is a prayer that I pray every day to Amitabha Buddha, that I will be able to go to his Pure Land when I pass from this life. And I pray that both me and my boys will be able to pass to that Pure Land. And that's in the Tibetan prayer book. So, and obviously there's, Theravada is sort of assumed in almost really every school of Buddhism, right? It's the original, the foundational sort of Buddhism. They are the holder of the Pali Canon, a very sacred and the most ancient extant version of Buddha's words. So it's all equal, and it's important that we create models to see it that way, and it's important that we adopt an attitude of reverence towards every practitioner of every school who are in their way, doing their best with their practice, whether it be Pure Land, Theravada, Mahayana, Zen, or Vajrayana. Everybody's doing their part, to further Buddhism, and we need to be reverent of that and respectful of that and joyful that so many people have so many different avenues, so many different ways to get at the Dharma. Um, and I believe that a square that can roll around on all sides presents more opportunities, more access, more ways of accessing than, say, a pyramid that you have to climb to the top to get to the best. So that's my talk for today, guys. I hope you've enjoyed it. Thank you so much for your patience. And I hope that we have sort of enlightened you to take a look at the way that you model the universe, the way that you think of these conceptual models, and check them often to see if there's bias in them. And I urge you to adopt a universal attitude towards religion in general and even life, and be as inclusive and as open as we possibly can be with our ideas, with our thoughts, and with our compassion. With that, I'm going to close. Let's take a look and see if we can see the boys anywhere on the camera. I see, is that Xander over there? No, you can't see Xander. And Xavier is there directly under the table, actually. So the boys are here, though. They wish you well. And so with that, we'll give you our blessing today. I hope that everything is auspicious for you. And thank you so much for watching this video, and we will see you again soon.